Welcome back to another. There's so many. These are all special, but this one's also extremely special because I have my very special friend, Lisa Sargent, here with us. Everyone, I'm sure you do know that Lisa is probably one of the most amazing fundraising letters. She's got a new book coming out, which I'm sure you'll be hearing about, and I'll link to in the email, Lisa, when this goes out. But you'll definitely have to buy her book. But I'm delighted to have you here to share some of your wisdom with my friends at the DM clinics.
And I am grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And hi, everybody out there. I don't know who I'm saying hi to, but hopefully some old friends out there in the audience. And we have just been, prior to now, just talking about the love of the craft, and which um, this is really all about. I have a tiny little PowerPoint to share, nothing fancy, but whenever you want, we can dig in, or we can just talk shop for a minute, whatever makes you happy.
No, I think again, I like in my clinics even I'm aware of people's time and I like to get them
Yeah,
in and out as quickly as possible.
yeah.
So why don't we let you do what you have for these folks, and if we want to, we'll either riff off it for a bit, or if it's just as and a beautiful expression, we will let it just be a beautiful expression and end it there.
Okay. And how many are we talking about? 15 minutes roughly, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So, and the other thing I would say to you is if you have a question or a comment or something that you can't withhold, just say it, because I'd rather have this be like a back and forth, and that's cool
Yeah.
with me. All right. If you see something, you're like, oh my God, we did this. We need to talk about this.
Okay,
That's good too.
you're creating a lot of editing work for me, Lisa, because I'm going to try to cut this out or something. So no, we're good. We're good.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So a few weeks ago, I think now, maybe a month ago, in my email newsletter, the reboot of the email newsletter called the loyalty letter, I did an issue on donor care's hidden corners and how to like them with generosity and love. And that's what really I've sort of plumped up that email issue and given you a few more examples. And sort of this is like the live full action version of that, if you will. Because I think, as you and I just talked about, John, I think the more we can do that, the more we can elevate the craft of fundraising, creative, copywriting, and design together. And really what we talk about is, like I said to you, when I talk to people and I say give your donors something beautiful, what I mean is that your words and every single corner where they look in an appeal, and I'm talking direct mail, but you could apply that to email too, um, to just give them something. Try to elevate it above the ordinary if you can. So you're inviting them into the story, you're touching their hearts. That's what we're about. We're about generosity, and we can't drop the baton and not worry about page numbers, or it's kind of an act of kindness and consideration for the donor as well. Generosity and copy and design as well. So to talk about that, when I'm talking about donor care's hidden corners, what you're going to see here are maybe some bits and pieces that you think you're going to like roll your eyes and think like, is she seriously talking about page turns? Yes, she's seriously talking about page turns, because it might be the difference between a 10% response rate and a 10.5% response rate. And maybe nobody's going to notice, but your donors are going to notice. And over time, they're going to stick with you longer because your stuff is enlightening and emotional to read. It brings meaning to their lives. So, without further ado, Donor Care's hidden corners, how you can light them with love. And we're going to start with page prompts and page turns. And I'm going to tell you a little story. So, last week, a couple weeks ago, whenever I got this appeal letter, it was 6 pages long, which is a-okay. I write 6-page appeals all the time. I'm sure you do. And there were no page numbers at all. No page turns, no page numbers. So like if I dropped it on the floor, apart from maybe the signature page and the first page, I would have no idea where I was. And some people might say, great, but for me, when I'm reading, my job is breadcrumbs, right? So I want to keep you, we know people don't read in a linear fashion, but I want to keep you engaged in the story all the way along so I can have you stay engaged and absorb as much of that story into your heart. So you want to give. So page prompts and page turns are a great way to do that. And you can use what I would call surprise and delight to do that. So here we go. You can see here on the image at the top is basically the bottom of page 1, where instead of just saying, please read Overleaf, we included a little illustration of a mascot. It was a little guide dog and a thing that says, please continue Sean's story Overleaf, right down to the hand font that we used and the different color ink, almost as if someone went in and said, here, see the rest of Sean's story Overleaf. And then at the top of the next page where they went, which this wasn't a joined letter. So in other words, it wasn't, you open it up like a spread.
Mhm.
They would have to turn the page over. So Overleaf, that's the Irish thing. I don't know if you guys do that, but at the top of page 2, there's a little hand circle, page 2. So you can instantly orient yourself. You can pay attention to the story, not waste a bunch of time trying to figure out where the heck you are when you're reading. And again, super quick, what I always look for is if there's a way we can use what I would call the beauty element. And in this case, the little mascot of the dog and the hand font, that's the beauty element for me. That little personal, like we talked about, that little bit of authenticity.
Mhm.
So that's one. I'm going to give you one more. Super simple Overleaf. If you can't help 100 families, help just one. Just you can create cliffhangers. You can Overleaf why Martha did XYZ, why John did XYZ, how you helped so and so. Cliffhanger page turn, almost like a good outer envelope teaser, let's say. But then when you take them to the next page, number your pages, hand font. It doesn't have to be fancy. So that's one hidden corner. Most people forget that if you can remember it and you can light it with love, you're one step ahead of the game and your stuff stands out.
That's really good. I really, again, this is such a nerdy friggin' thing, but I absolutely love it because like, there's so much that we do just like, oh, we just want someone to like, I put please turn over or like next page dot dot dot. Like I'll do that, but
Yep.
to like put a little more, like you said, a little more love and attention into something like this
Yep.
is it's so granular and friggin' tiny, like and so overlooked. And
Yeah.
that like this is the stuff that like just brings me so much joy in my
Yeah.
and I love this. And something else I want to point out, and I want to point out and let you answer it. I often have people come to me and say, my boss doesn't like me breaking the paragraph at the bottom of the page. Can you make sure the whole paragraph's on the page? Why do we do that, Lisa? Why do we break paragraphs?
Well, John, I would love to tell you that, and I'm sure you know the answer. The answer is, once again, many little visual cues that we can give people. What's our job? Go from the outer envelope right to the inside. What's our job? Get the outer envelope opened. You open the envelope. What's our job? They're going to look at page 1, unless, of course, you subscribe to Siegfried Bogelet and they're going to look at your PS first, but we'll get to that. But so if you read page 1, why would you want to end it? Why would you want to end it neatly on page 1? Then I'm done. And that's one more reason for me to put your letter down. But if you end it on an uneven break, guess what they have to do? They have to turn it over to finish the sentence. You're harnessing really neuroscience, our desire to close things, to finish things.
Thank you. And that's why we do it.
Exactly.
Over and
That's why
over
we do
again.
it.
Brilliant. Okay.
That's why we do
Thank you,
it.
Lisa.
It's
All right. Thank you,
like
Lisa.
going to church, John. Okay, so the next one is reply envelopes. And show your BRE some love. So if people don't know BRE stands for Business Reply Envelope. What that means is if you're from the United States, Business Reply is the one that has the little, you might have the little barcode at the bottom. We'll get to that in a second. It means you don't have to add a stamp, but a lot of times you'll see the little thing that says add your stamp here to save more puppies or kittens or whatever. If you're in Ireland, they call that, or UK, they call that a free post envelope. Where you obviously the postage is paid. And what do you guys call it in Canada? Is it free post or
Yeah, no, it's BRE. It's either
BRE?
RE or BRE.
BRE. Okay. Or and then obviously in a second I'll show you a CRE, which is cash reply envelope. I never get that right, but you have to put a stamp on it, which I would not recommend. I've had one client ever that does it, and we'll talk about that in one second. But so show your BRE some love, because a lot of times what you see are these boilerplate reply envelopes, but there is so much goodness you can add to those. And Here is one example. Here are actually a few examples. This is Merchants Key, Ireland. Everybody knows Merchants Key, Ireland, and the story of Nana Murphy. If you don't, and you go to my website, there's a 47-page PDF. It's free. It's not gated. You can download it and read the whole story of how we applied a lot of these lighting the hidden corners to help more people. And so here we have, use this little envelope to post your kind words, a gift or a prayer. It means the world to know you're there. Now, just a second ago, we were talking about alliteration. Here's another thing that your brain loves to make music with words. The brain loves rhyme. So in addition to a hand font, a little illustration, they help people who are homeless and people who struggle with addiction problems. And so we have an illustration. This was a stock illustration. Most of my clients can't afford an illustrator, so we just go and we find stock stuff. And you can really do a lot with stock. I know you have a great illustrator, so all hail. But we do Shutterstock a lot of times, or stock imagery. So anyway, you've got the rhyme on there. You've got post to, just those little tiny hand touches. And then in the stamp box, instead of your stamp here helps even more, what can you put there? Well, in places like Ireland, you can put little things like that, and it still flies with On Post, their postal service. So keep safe first. You can see what we did for a child's charity, and that was during COVID. So we have a little bit of keep safe first, add a stamp if you can. At the top, if you when you go to you turn the outer envelope, or the outer envelope, the reply envelope over, we had a little message at the bottom as well on the flap side of the BRE, which there it's, I'm going to crucify the Irish language, but I apologize. Mila Boikis means 1,000 thanks. So 1,000 thanks today and always for the wonderful person you are. And that was actually an equine appeal. So that's why the little horseshoe is there.
Okay, nice.
So then here we go. This to the left in this image, you'll see what I mean by the CRE, which is where you have to put a stamp on. So we just dressed it up a little bit for Christmas with a child's drawing. And then the other one you see is an organization that mails just a standard boilerplate sort of BRE. We tucked a little bit of a, if you haven't wanted, adding a stamp in the upper corner. And then in one of the other ones, instead of the stamp call out, we had a deadline for a Doctor's Day appeal, and we used hand highlighter. So that worked as well.
Very good.
So that's BREs. The other thing I would say to you, if we go, can I go back one screen? Yeah, I can. So if I go back one screen to the Merchants Key, Ireland BRE, one of the famous things about this BRE, and you can do this as well with your own appeals, is they use a colored stock. Their brand color is purple, and these outer envelopes are actually lavender when they're printed. So if you can use a colored BRE, a lot of times it will boost your response rate. Did you put that in Creative Deviations?
I don't think so. No.
You didn't?
I know I talked about, yeah, I know I
Oh,
talked about using different colors for different parts, like different parts of
okay.
the appeal, but it was
Yeah.
based on anecdotal, like I know this is something you can do, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
I've never spent my time testing it and stuff. So I'm always interested if you've tested it and get some data, the fact that it can actually boost response using a color VRE, I think it's quite fascinating.
We actually, what we found, if I'm going to go back to the Wayback Machine here, what we found was that it boosted response. It only boosted response slightly. However, what we found was donors would say, "Oh, sure, a couple of months went by, and I wanted to send you guys a gift, and I couldn't figure out how to send it in. And then I saw one of your lovely your lovely envelopes. The ones that are colored."
Mm,
So we were like, okay, done. Now we have to do it because they
interesting.
think that's how they send their donation in. So,
Mm,
right. So in a
yeah.
way, that's what they connected in their head. Okay. So next one, photo captions. Here's my rule is let no caption go unloved instead of, well, we're going to talk about it. Let me just go here. So these are all different photo captions. The one you'll see, the one in the far left there, proof of how much your support matters. That's on the cover of a newsletter where you can tuck in sort of proof of how effective their donation was. You can bring in qualities like the joy in Katie's eyes speaks volumes about the difference you make. You're bringing in emotion to that. You're not just saying, here's little Katie who you helped, yada, yada, yada. You're saying the joy in her eyes, like, give me, you're bringing it to life through that. Together with families like Nyan Gets, we are in exactly the right place right now to change tomorrow. It's blue, it's hand font, it shows a little bit of a hand touch. And then the other one you can see there in the Courier font, which we love, in the bottom left, the warmth of your caring in the smiles of little ones still vulnerable after Morocco's earthquakes last year. This one is huge because if you've done any kind of research around the Institute of Sustainable Philanthropy, Jen Shang and her work, where she talks about donor identities, when you can bring things in like caring, compassion. I'm going to look at the one here because we did a donor survey for one of my clients, and they came back with these words: compassion, caring, love, justice, help, sharing, empathy, kindness, hope, generosity, and support. I had to look at that because I have it in giant, like 30-point font on my wall. If you can bring those emotions to life for people, they tend to see those identities, and you're reflecting their goodness back at themselves, and they tend to be more generous, of course, because who wouldn't be? We see them for the best person that they are, and you can do that, as I say here, through your photo captions.
That's sorry, I'm making notes myself. The yeah, the Jen Shang seven moral adjectives. I have like a letter clinic coming up and stuff, and I'll repeat those because I again, it's just I just love it so like it's such a minutiae little thing, but when you weave those moral, like we weave them into letters and we weave them into like the yes line on the reply form, but I love that
Yes.
we're even weaving into just like the little cut lines, to photographs and stuff like that. It's just like a yeah, it's like when you see it's like, oh, fuck, of course we should be
Yeah.
doing this. But yeah, thank you. That's really good.
But
Okay.
I think it's like it sometimes if you don't see it, or you don't like the Jen Chang stuff is just, to me, when I took that okay, come on, philanthropic psychology class,
Yeah.
um that to me was like, is like somebody opened the key. They gave me the keys to the kingdom. They were like, here's the reason you want to say all this stuff. And I was like running around, oh, you can pick compassion. And it's just because to me, I always see when I'm writing to somebody, what I'm seeing is somebody who is flawed and imperfect, just like the rest of us. And they have doubts and they have fears and they have things that regrets and things that they wish they hadn't done in their lives. And in some ways, for me, when I write, writing is redemptive. So we're giving them, it's not, fundraising isn't icky or greasy or dirty to me. I'm giving them a way to connect with the best and most beautiful part of themselves. And why wouldn't you want to say the warmth of your caring? Of course, that's the warmth of your caring,
Beautiful.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we're speaking the same language. You and I we're
I
just,
know.
it's like a cheering section. So flap sides. So we talked about flap sides a minute ago for the BREs, the flap of the envelope. Can you add more sparkle? I always try. Some organizations, they can't afford, they can only print on one side of the envelope. So
Yeah.
that's fine. We go with that. But when you can, there's a couple ways we do this. You'll see here, did you know your generosity for innovative beekeeping projects? It's a whole bit about how they help. And this is actually the flap side of a newsletter outer envelope, because what I'm thinking is obviously we want donors to open and we want them to read our newsletter. And so we give them a little teaser, pretty little graphic. Again, that's a stock graphic. And then hand font, see inside for more. You're always sort of like Hansel and Gretel. You're always giving them little pebbles, little
Mm-hmm.
breadcrumbs,
Yeah, look.
something to find in the moonlight to walk their way through
Mm-hmm.
the pack. And then the one behind that, inside this envelope, waits 2 times the love that couldn't otherwise grow. That's another newsletter one where we talk about, without the print version of the newsletter, which this, when people try to go all digital, they tend to lose money because direct mail still works
The thing. Yeah.
and is still effective. So their ROI was 2 to 1 every time. It costs for every dollar they spent on the letter, they raised $2.
Mhm.
Merchant's Key was 7 to 1.
Oh,
So
wow. Very
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yep. Um, so Flapside Sparkle, whenever you can do it, give it a try. Think about that hidden corner. Then sign off, say it sweeter than sincerely. Um, I put a little plug for my book in there. In my book, when it comes out, there's a whole uh, list of sample sign offs that you can use that are better than, sincerely or whatever the boilerplate sign offs. And here are some sign offs, some of which are in the book, some of which are not. Sometimes I try to give them a little blessing at the end. So it's such an honor to be here with you. May you walk in health this autumn for the good you do. People love that stuff. They love to have a little, one more little thing you can say. And the other thing it helps to do is it helps to give your CEO or your signatory, it helps to give them a bit of a connection with the reader as well. Imbues a little bit of their personality into it, gives them one little last kind gesture that they can do that isn't sincerely Fred, you know.
Yeah, I guess it was like it's such a like a little missed opportunity to just inject, like you said, some love and enthusiasm and action and care into your letter, and people just like, yeah, sincerely, because it's just like what everyone friggin' does. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, exactly. I think, you know what, and honestly, we should cheer for that because that's exactly what you like hit the nail on the head. It's not so much that sincerely something wrong with sincerely, it's just exactly what you said. It's a missed opportunity. And why would you ever want to miss a single opportunity in a fundraising letter? Sometimes, look, sometimes, and you know as well as I do, like sometimes the appeal might be like, for example, a COVID appeal that we might have done that might have been all in courier that was super urgent. You might not want to go all lovey-dovey in your page turns or whatever. Maybe it's just, oh, please turn over, continue, page 2 in typed courier font. You have to really sort of be in touch with the feel of the letter and the topic that you're trying to get across, right?
mhm.
I mean, it's a feel more than um, in the same way that when you learn how to drive a car or you learn how to drive a standard, right? You have to get that feel between the gas and the clutch. And you kind of have to know that sort of relationship where you have to know sort of how much love do you fling out there depending on the appeal.
Mhm.
And there's a time and a place for all of that. In this case, though, most of the time we can do it. Um, and then here's just one more super quick. So, with gratitude for your generosity, thank you for being the brave heart. We get back to those donor identities again and reflecting those things back at people, which is another great sign off, is a great place to do that. Um, okay, so one more. Thank yous again, more in the book. Um, do better than on behalf of. You've seen them, the thank you letters that say, he shakes his head. It's exactly,
Yeah.
I know we're like, oh no. So don't start your thank you letter with on behalf of. Please, please, for the love of Pete, do not do that. Here's a few things in the book, and I think I've probably shared them somewhere on social media as well. But there's a million ways you can do that. You actually have, don't you, in that Star Wars thing, you have a great thank you letter. That is like iconic to me.
Thank you.
Um, because you do the same thing. You start with a beautiful lead, like a you wonderful you, what a remarkable thing you have done. These are so much nicer than on behalf of the board and trustees of XYZ charity. No, what's the thank you about? It's about you, the generous giver, your heart, your remarkable thing that you did. We needed you and you were there. 1 in a million. That's what you are. That's all true. So in terms of for me, I mean, I'm a loud and proud thankologist, and I believe in the power of, and actually the book would talks a lot about the actual statistical quantifiable power of gratitude done right. Um, but even if I had never written a book or seen a single statistic on gratitude, it's what we grew up with as children. You get a gift, you send a thank you, right? You thank people for the good things they do and for the good people they are. That's all these leads really are. P.S. We love you. Um, Postscripts are never an afterthought. And you've heard people, you've seen it probably yourself. You PS, you repeat the offer, you do whatever. And they're like these two line little things. I just, my PSs are different than that. A lot of times when I'm looking through an appeal, if there's a little tiny piece of the story that like is just sort of like a little addition, I'll make a note of it and I'll think, okay, I'm going to hang that back from the story so I can put it in the PS. Like PS, Janie just learned how to ride a bicycle without training wheels this year, and if it hadn't been for your love, she never would have been riding a bike at all. Please give if you can, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that. You hold back a little bit because, as we know, Siegfried Vogel has found in his studies that 90% of the people who open your direct mail are going to read the postscript first. Make it beautiful, make it lovely. Here's one of the ways we do it is sometimes we'll put the PS in hand font because it comes as an afterthought. In this case, not an afterthought, but it comes at the end. And so what I did was excuse me, I talked about this girl who, no, I didn't say it anywhere else in the appeal. Sorry about that. I didn't say anything about it in the appeal where the odds of her surviving her fifth birthday were not good. So that was like the last little bit I could add to this little girl's story where she's already defied the odds. So like, can you help her? Um, and then we also sometimes will throw little graphics in at the end. And you don't need an illustrator if you're just a small charity or whatever. You can use the stock imagery. Um, and then here are some more. Sometimes at the end of a PS, I'll tuck in a match reminder if you have a matching gift or a little star. Um, Sometimes I'll talk about legacies. You'll see that in that sample. And here at the top, there's another thing which I know you have a printed copy of those Hunsinger clinics, right?
Mhm.
Um, the Eddie box, which I'll show you about. The Eddie box comes after the PS, and it was famous fundraiser Jerry Hunsinger. It's on Sophie. You can find it. Um, where did he go? Where'd my Eddie box go? Okay, he's just okay. I don't know what it's doing. Um, I had another Eddie box. I don't know where it is, but the Eddie, you could consider this asterisk font about the match. You could consider that to be the Eddie box. What will happen is you'll see your letter, say the last page of your letter, you'll have your sign off, and then you'll have the postscript below it. And then below that, if your postscript, say, was in type font, you might put the Eddie box in hand font. It's like one more last little thing that goes at the bottom. If you know Johnson boxes at the beginning of the letter, way up above the salutation, below the address blocks, Eddie boxes are basically the last page's answer to the Johnson box, named after Jerry Hunsinger's gardener, I believe, right?
So that
So
sounds right. Yeah, something in my brain is sparking. Yes, that's right.
yeah. So, but that's it. I mean, those are the hidden corners that I called out here. There are many, many, many more. Everywhere you turn, you can do that. But I think it's more sort of a mindset that you can get into where you look at every piece of your pack with fresh eyes, like we talked about, with curious eyes, and say, where can I infuse a little bit more, just a little bit more love into my pack?
That's exactly. I mean, if anyone walks away from any of these clinics with one idea, which is just like real life, you just don't like it's. This is not a set it and forget it kind of craft. Like the stuff that you were talking about, stuff that I've been talking about. It's not about like, oh, if I always do something like this, I just can just do it like that forever. Well, we wouldn't do that in real life. Do you know what I mean? Like there's things.
Yeah,
So yeah, Siegfried Vogel says some people only read your PS and make a decision to give or not. And so that's why people are like, just put your offer. And I can see a few of these, just repeat your offer, and that's that. I'd go, oh, I see what they're asking for. Do I want to do that? Yes or no? And move on. But
yeah,
you're also saying there is also a moment, occasionally so, or all the time, to inject some love and personality and feel, or there are different things you can do with the PS. So the idea is there's nuance. It's not always the same thing. It's not always the same tactic over and over again. There's nuance in which is this the one tactic that makes the most sense in the context of this appeal with the letter signer and the story I'm telling? Or does it just need to be courier font and give right now? Like
yeah,
where are we at in that? What is this thing supposed to do? So
yeah.
that is infused everywhere, but I think that you shining some light on some different corners, as I do in my stuff, there are thousands of corners in this beautiful craft of ours to do
Mm.
things that inject humanity into this beautiful work we get to do every day. And that's what I want people, and that's what you're doing, and that's what I want people to do all the time is where can you inject more humanity
Mm.
into this beautiful craft of direct mail or direct response. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's it. That's it. I think the two other things I would say is when you talk about the postscript, actually, you just when you said that, it just made me think of something that I never even thought of before, which is if we look at it like you just have to repeat the offer because maybe some people are only ever going to read your PS or whatever, then isn't it almost like a reverse outer envelope where what's the job of the PS? Maybe the job of the PS is to be good enough to make somebody go back and want to start at the beginning and read your whole letter,
absolutely.
you know? So I the craft, I guess the other thing I would say is to follow on to what you've said is like you go out you go out into the real world and you think this is the real world of the donors. They're trying to call their doctor and make an appointment. They're put on hold 300,000 times a day. They're listening to automated voicemails. They're having to push buttons for every freaking thing on the planet. And you know what? Humanity is weary. And what we want a little love. We want a little human touch. We want a smile. Um, like your letter should be like that. Your letter should be like a friend from one friend to another saying, "Hey, we see you for the many good things you are. We know the world is a real pain in the butt sometimes and it's really hard to feel like a faceless person. How about you read this letter and here's the person you can connect to who maybe is a little bit forgotten like you too and you can help them." That's
Amen.
it. Amen.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. We're done here. Our work is done.
Thank you, Lisa. It was
Thank you.
brilliant as I knew it would be, and I'm so grateful for you for sharing that with me and for everyone who may be watching this video today.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time and energy. When does the book come out, by the way?
Well, it's being proofread right now. I'm finishing back cover testimonials, and the theory is somewhere near the end of October. But if it's a little bit late, don't hold me to it because I mean, the book took 10 years to write and get to this point. So,
So right now,
it's
what's another
yeah,
week or two
right.
anyway? Okay.
What's another few days?
So
But that's
hopefully by
where
the
we're
time you
at. Yeah.
see this video, if it's available, I will link to it in the email so you can buy it yourself. But thank you, Lisa, for everything. And I do appreciate your time and your love for this little session of ours. Thank you.
Yes, and for craft, I want to thank you for your dedication to craft because it's huge and you're spreading the word. And I just can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a light, really, truly.
Thank you.